All right. All right, guys. So, actually, I don't need this plugged in. I just realized. We are doing our 17K special AMA. For those of you who are new to the channel, I like to essentially say thank you to the 1,000 new subscribers we have. It's pretty cool, right? When you only have 16,000, you go to 17,000. That's a pretty big jump. Was that about 6-7%? I like that. James Scott, Madness, welcome. And I like to take an opportunity to answer people's questions, to kind of shoot the shit, about an hour. I don't do too many live streams, but I do think it's kind of important to say thank you, especially those of you who support me on patreon.com/codingtutorials360. But the gist of it is we got 1,000 new aspiring coders out in the world who want to support the channel and want to give back. So while everyone's kind of funneling in, feel free to ask questions and I'll answer them as to the best of my ability. But what's going on with the channel moving forward? That's always a good one to start off with. Is as you'll notice, I have lots of Ask a Dev videos coming out. These are 5 to 10 minute videos talking about certain topics. It could be anything such as the Stack Overflow developer survey. It could be the I talked about nootropics and brain pills, like smart pills that I use. That was a little bit more controversial because it's not something I really think children should use. I've also talked about a whole range of other things. How to put resume experience on your LinkedIn for coding when you have no experience, or how to basically fill that out. How I got my internship. And so those sections are coming out pretty frequently, almost one a day right now. As long as I have topics, I have about 40 lined up. So if you have any suggestions, definitely let me know. The Developers Cove, which sounds like you might have a channel with a name like that, is asking, as I choke on myself over, excuse me, any tips for front-end design? I'm good with back-end, but horrid on front-end. My main tip is build things out and watch UI UX videos. So kind of see what's going on out there and use a lot of times when you're building web applications, you'll be using already pre-built libraries. And so that's things like Bootstrap or Angular Material. I'm sure there's probably a React one that people have built. I would say if you're really bad with UI UX or front-end design, get comfortable with those and just use those. I'm not particularly great at front-end design, but what I've found is that I can get a lot of the functionality I want just using Bootstrap. If I don't like the look of it, I can then go around and get things to work. And look at templates also. One of the things I don't like spending time on is HTML templates. Get things. I like the logic, right? So, which is probably why you're better at back end than front end. So that would be my suggestion: is get comfortable with the libraries and frameworks and things like that when you're trying to get better with front end design. And you'll find that you slowly are getting, once you get comfortable with those and you kind of see how they work and what they're affecting, you'll get better with front end design. And also in terms of not just using things in the actual code, but getting better. One site that I use is that I've used for templates is startbootstrap.com, I believe it was. And that is really cool because they have a bunch of like pre-built templates. So you can kind of see and see what you can, like, see templates already built out for certain things, and they're blank and everything. They're just kind of grayed out, or they have practice images in them. And what's cool about that is it kind of lets your imagination run a little bit, but it gives you like, oh, this is what you could do, and then you have to think, how can I make this better? And that's one of the cool things about kind of the pre-built templates, right? As long as you're going to make it better and not just insert your own photos and your own content. So how was your transition from a CS degree junior to a self-taught coder? Interesting. By the way, on a side note, how cool is this shirt, man? I've had this shirt for like 2 years now. Pac-Man's put in work. But yeah. So it's interesting because I could tell you 100% that I've learned more on my own than I ever did in school. And hey, shout out to Chris Sean. I was in his live stream today. If you guys like developer channels and vlogging and all that stuff, check him out. But one of the things that was hard for me was when I transitioned, I felt a little bit like when I decided to stop going, when I dropped out, right? I felt to this day, I still have a chip on my shoulder. Should I? I don't think so. Are there benefits to having a CS degree? Yes, of course. It's will help you get your foot in the door, right? It will help you make. It's kind of like dating, right? If you got a good face, it's like having a good face and like good physical attributes. It's not the end all be all, but it makes the introduction so much easier if you're a good looking individual, right? And that's kind of what a bachelor's does for you in the workplace, right? You go to school to get a job, and a lot of companies won't hire you without a degree. Now that's lessening over time, but what I can say is that it's not impossible. It's hard. It's not impossible. But now that I'm working as a developer for 6+ months now, and I've worked at a software company before, and I've had internships, I could tell you 100% that, at least in terms of web development, I would learn very little going back to school. And that time would be better spent with me learning. Like, for instance, I spent all of last weekend working with Node Express, MongoDB, and Mongoose to become a better backend developer. I want to be a mean and MERN stack developer, and I work primarily in the LAMP stack, and I want to become a better developer. I would not gain relevant job market skills going back to school. And on top of that, it would cost me about $20,000 to $30,000 of debt. So I don't know that it actually at this point would return that value to me. It would return some value, and it eventually would pay for itself, but not to the point where I think I would go back. Because having done 3 years of a CS program plus, and being a junior going on to my senior years, I have about 1.5 years left. I think about it all the time, and I kind of have a chip on my shoulder, even though I'm a better developer than several CS grads that I've met and that I know, and it's very, but there's something about it that I don't like the fact that I didn't finish. Now, I hated school, and I don't like it. I don't think you learn relevant things. And I think I more hate the fact that it could affect me in the future. But the transition wasn't... When I made the transition from a CS student to a self-taught developer, I was putting in 4 to 5 hours a day after work. I was working a full-time job in LA, and I was putting in about 4 to 5 hours a day and about 10 to 12 on the weekends. And it took me from knowing no JavaScript to and not being very good with HTML and CSS in all realities. So basically learning web development fresh with that sort of work ethic, it took me about 9 months to get to where I wanted to get to, right? It took me 9 months to become a developer. At about 6 months, I felt like I was ready. I talked to my current work. It didn't work out. Or if it did, it wasn't, or if it was going to, it didn't look like it at the very least. And I've started applying. I got a job within about 6 weeks, I would say, from when I started applying. And I've talked about how my job search strategies, and I have, in one of the Ask a Devs, things like that. So I've thought about it, about going back, and the reason that I can honestly say that I've learned, it would be one thing if I actually knew I was going back and learning relevant skills, but like now it's just I'm going back to get the degree, and I think I've learned so much more on my own that I don't think I don't know. I'll probably go back eventually, just not anytime soon. Am I not considering getting like a switch? So I go back and forth on this, guys. This is kind of a hard thing because I want to go back. This is all right. So here's the cold hard truth. I want to go back. I have a chip on my shoulder. I feel like less of a developer at times, even though I think I'm a decent developer, because I don't have my CS degree or a tech degree of some sort, engineering degree. I think about it. I kid you not. And like you see, I kind of, even in this conversation, I'm a very open conversation about that. I feel bad that I haven't finished. But I also don't want to have any debt. I don't have any debt right now. My total debt is my car, which is about $2,500. And April has no debt. If I was to go back to school, it would probably be $20,000+ of debt. That's a lot. That's a lot. And I think the value that would provide, I can make that up on my own now. I truly do believe that. Now, what are the benefits of going back? Well, I could probably get a slightly higher salary. True. I could also have easier introductions at companies as well. Now, the downside, other than debt, is the sheer amount of stress. I am a person who thrives with actual realistic problems. Like if I tell you, hey, I want to be a web developer, what do I need to learn? And then we're talking theory, doesn't do it for me. Now, you're saying, look, I need you to build 30 applications. I need you to do it in these databases with these technologies. I need you to use this server type, this server type. I need you to do it in these languages, these frameworks, and I need you to actually do shit that you're going to do in the workplace. I think that I can showcase my skills with that much better, which is why I'm very pro bootcamp, because I think they do a lot of that. Anyhow, so Ross Life says, I have an undergrad in something completely unrelated to programming. What masters do you recommend I can go to fulfill that gap? I don't think you need a master's, to be honest. I think what you need is a strong portfolio and maybe a boot camp. One of the best developers I've interviewed. So if there's an interview I talked about PHP in 2017, it's an old coworker of mine. He actually has a bachelor's in history, American history, if I remember correctly, and he makes good money. And he's doing PHP development, and it really depends. It really depends on where you're at. Now, can you make more money with degrees? Of course you can. But there's also plenty of developers who do very well for themselves without degrees, and it's because they're good developers. Now, my job does do some tuition reimbursement after 1 year at it. Do I think web development is harder than any other coding and development jobs, for example, such as game development? Or are they all the same, really? I think they all have their challenges. I think web development's a great one to start with because it's very visual. A lot of coding, and this is probably one of my main problems working with like Java, is you don't really have time to actually build any GUIs, and you don't have time to build things out like that. You're typically doing a lot of algorithms, a lot of things like that. You're never building stuff. But with web development, it's very visual. You can kind of see when something works, when it doesn't work. And I like that aspect of it. I think that's one of the reasons JavaScript and web development is a little bit easier, at least in terms of the front end. When you're talking about the back end, it's a lot less visual, and it typically has to work hand in hand with the front end in web development. Now, there are challenges with everything. Now, one great challenge of game development is timelines. You have extreme crucial timelines when talking about game development, and it's not, it's a common thing that's known. And you have this sort of crunch time. And in my interview with Michael, I'm forgetting his name, but he's a project manager at a VR game company. It's that you have budgets and you have timelines, and they're very, very, very adamant about it. And my understanding is that there's game development's a very hard industry to get into for the most part, and like not very well paying. Now, I haven't done a ton of research on it, but it also depends on my thing is this: forget about what's harder, because it's all hard, right? It's all going to be, there's always going to be a challenge. And what you need to think about is, what do you want to do? If you're like, and why do you want to do it, right? Make sure it's what you want to do. So what is it that you want to do? Do you want to do game development? Then it doesn't matter that it's harder. Are you gonna work hard? Are you gonna get there? Are you gonna put in a couple hours after work, a couple hours on the weekend? Are you gonna stay up to date with what is going on in game development? Are you going to be part of the community? Are you going to be pushing yourself to be a better developer, so that whether you have a CS degree or you don't have a CS degree, you have a strong argument as to why you deserve X amount of dollars and why you're a good developer, and you now have experience to back it up and go to that next level. So what's my favorite JS framework? I don't know if this counts, but I'm loving Node and Express, man. I just started working in the back end. As someone who works in PHP and MySQL at work, I'm loving it, man. Node, Express, MongoDB, and Mongoose. Those are my new, that's my new shit right now. I'm looking to build backends for everything right now. I'm loving it, man. So can you tell me what you actually do in your work? I mean, tasks and how it's working. I'm a B.Tech student. Please explain. Yeah, sure, man. So on average, it depends on what stage of the process you're in, right? So if you're just starting a project, so what I do is some web developers build websites for companies and web applications for other companies. I work for a company and we build web applications that are going to help with our company and its service. It's a service industry and the services that they use. So they're primarily involved in, I can't really talk too much. They don't like me talking about work and stuff like that because in my contract, there's like no marketing. There's a marketing clause and things like this when you sign contracts. You don't market for us. And so I'm always kind of hesitant. But the gist of their company is they help facilitate military training operations. And we build, and what I do, and what the group of devs I work with do, is we build applications to help facilitate that and various things. So depending on what aspect of the project you're at, you could be doing things from talking with the client to wireframes, to user flow charts, to building out the basic folder structure, to doing QA, to doing checking off bug tasks, to building out the actual application, right? So where you're coding things in JavaScript, Angular, maybe you're fixing responsive design. So like responsive, I'll give you an example of what I did today. We didn't put a whole lot of time into responsive design because of the way our chart was. And so we were under the impression that everything was just going to be responsive up to a certain point, and it wasn't. So we had to add additional response design. So I spent today working through changing our views to be much more responsive. A small task, and typically I'm working more with the Angular and the JavaScript, but all the same, it's something that you would do. And tomorrow I'll be we set up a new theming architecture for our application. So when we sell it to a different client, if they don't like the way it looks, no problem. We have it all set up so that we can design it however you want it to look, because the functionality will be the same. We're just going to display it prettier. So you could be doing any of these things. So it could be anything from testing to like pre-planning with wireframes, to communicating with the client, to checking off tickets, fixing bugs, to actually building the application, building the database and connecting it in the back end. So it just depends. It's not like you're going to be doing the same thing every day. It depends on where you're in the project and what are the priorities, right? So you'll always have something to work on, or you won't have a job. The thing is what are the priorities at that moment? Do we build this new feature for our application, or do we refine the features that we have and get to a better level with them? All right, let's see here. I don't know if that answered your question, but you do a lot. It's the answer. If you're a good developer and you're on a small team, at least you do a lot. So how good is freeCodeCamp regarding front-end development? I like freeCodeCamp because a lot of times I don't have any originality on how to build full like where to start building applications. So that's really what helped me get my foot in the door as a developer. So freeCodeCamp gives you a lot of API projects. It gets you comfortable with using APIs, which is really crucial in web development. It also gets you comfortable with building things that you didn't think you knew how to build, and logically start thinking. So I think the front end application part of it is very good, and a great place to start if you're more comfortable with the back end. You want to do something at the front end. And you can do that, by the way, with the back-end applications. There's tons of back-end applications in the back-end certification. It's what I'm working on right now, where you can build front ends for it. And I have a video coming out in 2 days where I just built a small little front end, even though and the reason that I built the front end, even though the URL shortener microservice didn't ask for it, all it wanted you to do was build the back end and the database, was because I wanted to start getting comfortable building a front end that connects to a back end with these technologies. Let's see. I'm going to do some courses at community college. I'm taking GE courses that they said would put me on course to a CS degree when I transfer for a year. Do you really need calculus to be successful at CS? No. Will you need it for a CS degree? Yes. So typically you just need very good algebra skills. And basic arithmetic when dealing with coding. You'll do very low calculus. Any thoughts on machine learning? I don't really know too much about it, man. It always interests me. I plan on learning React Native to try and build web apps, build a web app that I can compile down into like an Android or iOS app. And that's kind of the next endeavor after this sort of backend and MongoDB and Mongoose. Why did you start learning code, and what age did you start? Just curious. So I would say I didn't really start learning until probably about 2 years ago when I started my channel. But before that, I had 2 years of like CS courses, right? So so I've been learning for about 4 years, and it was mainly just as a. It was, for me, I legitimately one day Googled what are the most valuable degrees, and like what do they pay, what are the most in demand, and why are they the best? And they all were related to engineering or coding. And I was like, okay, cool. Computer science degree seems like the best way of going about it. And that's kind of how I got into coding. And how I got into web development was legitimately, I was getting fed up not being as good as a developer as I thought I should be. And so I started my channel. I wanted to become a web developer. I wanted to be a developer. I wasn't conscious enough of all the terminology and everything to even know what the real difference was. And so once I kind of fell into it. Once I fell into freeCodeCamp and I started diving into JavaScript frameworks and things like that. And so I think it was when I got hooked was when I built my first project, which was the Open Weather API project. That was like the first real thing I built where I really enjoyed it and I saw it, right? And it was there and it worked. And I never used jQuery before that. I just kind of went through the documentation, did what I could, and I struggled through it. And then I made a video about it. And like that was kind of when I said, hey, this web development thing is for me. Yeah, and thank you guys. A couple of you guys have WikiLeaks has just joined the stream, enjoying your content as of late. By the way, do you ever browse the programming threads over on /g/? No, I don't, man. I haven't been a Reddit guy before. So I'm not too, but I want to thank a couple of you guys have said, hey, congrats on the 17K. Thank you for that. And one thing I want to do for you guys, as well as for me, is I want to share our Facebook group. We have a Facebook group, Code Tech and Caffeine. It's kind of a general group, although I do every once in a while push a video out on there. And the link is in the description as well as in the chat. I encourage all of you to join it. I think one of the easiest things to do is feel like you're alone coding and no one else is in the grind, and you just need reminders, right? Like you look here, I have 3 posters and some CS stuff going on in the background. And the reason for that is I want constant reminders that, hey, what is the plan? The plan is to be a developer and to work and on top of it to stay focused, right? And the easiest way, in my experience right now, is to include it in every aspect of your life, from memes to interesting articles to whatever. And that's why it's, Code Tech and Caffeine. It's supposed to be a relaxing thing. The only rule is no self-promotion, except me. So that's the only rule, to keep it real. So anything special for the big 20K milestone? Kind of. April and I were talking about this today. So for the 20K milestone, we are going to do we're going to do another one of these, except April's going to join us. So April will do we'll be on here for a full hour or so. We'll be answering questions and kind of shooting the shit. So you'll get to ask her an embarrassing story. She can tell you stuff like how I pooped my pants one time or whatever it may be. I'm sure she'll embarrass me and say some great things at the same time. How did you find your first developer job with no experience? Combo Smasher, I actually have a video about how I job searched for it and how I filled out my LinkedIn and focused on my projects, the freeCodeCamp projects that I built. And I actually learned the bulk of my web development from freeCodeCamp and got my job as a developer before I finished the freeCodeCamp section. Now, I did do some stuff on my own, but that's kind of that's basically from freeCodeCamp at the same time, right? Let's see. What are some of your favorite YouTube channels for learning code? Yeah, sure. Some of the ones I go to are kind of the classics, right? We got Derek Bonos, right? Who's you guys all you all know, right? And so Derek Bonos is one who I watch quite frequently when I wanted to learn Angular. And if you guys want to see like what I was able to build with it, you can go to codingtutorials360.com. It's one of the reasons I got hired. I got hired as an Angular developer, and all I had ever built was my website in Angular. But I watched 4 videos of Derek's on Angular, and I also did the Code Academy course. So Derek Bonos is one that I've watched. I also watch the new Boston. And one of the newer ones that I've come across that I really like is Traversy Media. I apologize if I'm butchering that, but he has some great tutorials as well. Those are kind of the main ones I've been watching lately. My new resource, though, is to reach out to developers and have them tutor me for an hour. That is my new resource. So one of the great things about being a developer is you have friends who are developers, right? You want to be part of a community, and I teach my friends things and they teach me their friends things. Between Stephen Mayu and Engineered Truth, each one spent about an hour with me. In the first hour, I learned Express. I learned the basics of Express and Node, and I was able to build 3 of the API microservice projects. And in 1 hour with Stephen Mayu, I was able to do MongoDB and Mongoose alongside with Express and Node. What do I use the whiteboard for? Right now, I write down like ideas that I come up with that I want to talk about. But in the past, I've used it for solving algorithms, for drawing out things, for visualizing things. I'm a big believer that you need to visualize things when you're learning new, especially in the front-end development, and you can kind of break it down piece by piece. And yes, I did get my role. I don't even have a junior role. I have a my title is web engineer. I'm a full stack developer at my work, and I I got hired before I finished the front-end developer certificate. I believe I finished, that's it right there. I finished that probably 2 months after working as a developer. Do I do one-on-one sessions? Yes, I do one-on-one sessions. I actually did one for a young lady who is at a coding boot camp who wanted an introduction to Node and Express, and I charged $75 an hour. And yeah, I mean, a lot of it is mentoring as well. I've done mentoring where people, they kind of just, like, and that's why I like doing these AMA sort of, hey, just come in here. I don't have a topic. We'll all kind of dive through. And sometimes people just want you to sit down with them for an hour and say, look, man, this is where I want to be. How can I get there? And I can give you a rough map, right? I can say, okay, well, this is how I would jump around. These are the skills that I think are valuable in the market, and that I think if you build a strong portfolio with them, you can get there. Now, how do we learn these skills? Let's get started. Let me tell you about what resources are available and what to watch out for, and what you really need to, how to know when, hey, when I get here, what should I do? Well, this is what you should build. And I think projects and strong portfolios are what get you jobs. I really do believe that. Dylan, do you create usability prototypes before you begin coding? If so, what do you use? A friend of mine recently told me. So on smaller teams, there's no time, right? We're trying to get a product out. We don't need, we can always change it. So we do very little wireframing, and we don't really build any prototypes. And the main difference between prototypes, guys, and like wireframes, so wireframes are static, prototypes usually are not. So, and they're a little bit more detailed. Although apparently, well, usually when I think of a prototype, right? Prototypes, what's a good example? I'm forgetting the name of it. It's usually used on Mac, but basically wireframes kind of are an image that you use. I've done balsamic in the past. You have kind of like flow charts, how your page is supposed to flow, and those are like circles and squares and arrows and shit. And that kind of, based off that, you usually build the wireframe, and the wireframe, or you build the wireframe and then you kind of show it with it. They kind of go hand in hand. But that's just in like the perfect world, right? Where you have multiple developers. When you're on a team of 4, you don't necessarily have time for all that. So you kind of do what you can every day. And, we do wireframes when we're building a brand new controller, a brand new application, and go from there. But one thing I do suggest is if you really are trying to get your foot in the door and you want to have one killer project to impress people with, do the wireframes, do the user flows, and sell that, and do the testing and sell the whole package, right? You're like, look, I have the UI UX, here's the user flow charts, here's the wireframes, here's the flow charts, and you can do them after the fact if you really want to. And then you go, yeah, and then I have the testing, and then here's the application with the CRUD functionality. Why don't I code on a Mac? I'm a Windows guy, and I like Windows. That's the gist of it. I don't think it matters where you code. Are you going to do a video on wireframing? How do you guys know these things? Who told you, Jordan, that I'm going to do a video on wireframing? I am going to have a section on a course I eventually will make on wireframing, UI, UX, and stuff like that. So what are your strategies that you can use to make sure your front end and back end are connecting properly? When coding in front end, then coding in back end and forth, it can get pretty confusing. I think my main strategy was to make sure that I had a strong understanding of front end development before I moved on to back end development. I think one of the worst things you can do is go and learn too many things at once. So you really should only be messing with 1 or 2 technologies that you're not proficient in. No one's saying you have to be a master, but like you need to be all right in it. If you're shitty in this and you're shitty in this, when you put them together, you're just going to be shit. Like that's how I can put it. But if you're okay here and you're shitty here, you're going to have some okay shit, right? Like let's break it down as simple as you can get. So you need to have a strong understanding of one or the other before you move on to it. And I think front end's a lot easier to do that than the back end. I think the back end's not as visual. It's not as visual, and you may struggle with that. Book recommendations. I don't really read JavaScript books, man. I think it's more important to read articles and blogs and just be coding all the time. Can you actually land a job after completing all your projects through freeCodeCamp? I landed my job before completing all the projects on freeCodeCamp. If that answers your question. Do you have any experience with testing frameworks? I do, man. We do. So for those of you who aren't familiar with testing, QA, a quality assurance engineer, is typically where a lot of recent grads will go to, right? That's not necessarily web development grads, but typically CS grads that they'll start you there and kind of mend you into the developer that they want you to be. Now, quality assurance is testing. There's basically two types of tests. There's end-to-end testing and unit testing. Now, what unit testing is where you actually will like write code. You'll write code or test that will test a function to make sure that it returns the right result. So if I made a function that multiplied by 2, when I would write a test that said, hey, when I pass in 4, it needs to return 8. If it doesn't, something fucked my function up. Like that would be a unit test. Now, end-to-end testing, and an example of that for Angular would be Jasmine and Karma tests. So if you want to learn that, and I'll plan on doing a video on that in the future, you could do that as well. Now, end-to-end testing would be using something like Protractor, where it will actually run locally your web application, and it will click, and you'll type in commands to say, look, when it clicks I should be able to go and click this thing, or I should be able to enter text, and it should change our variable, our ng model, to have that value. So if I type Dylan in this input box, it needs to do that, and you write the code so that it kind of walks you through that, and that's end-to-end testing. But yeah, so I have a little experience in both of those. Not too much in the Protractor end testing. I'm more with the unit testing, which is a little less of a headache in my experience. So is there a program to run and test your code online on Windows or Linux? Test your code in what way? Is it easier to build APIs with PHP, Laravel, and MySQL, or Node Express, Mongoose, and MongoDB? In my experience, it's easier to do it Node Express, Mongoose, and MongoDB. That's my experience. And I work with PHP and MySQL at work, and I could tell you that there's a lot more you have to do than you have to do with Node Express and MongoDB. Also, the reason that it's easier is not only because there's a lot to do, because there's always going to be a lot to do, and it's always going to be complex and whatnot, but the fact that, remember, let's go back to if you're shit here and you're shit here, you're going to have shittier here. But if you're just good and you move to something you don't know, but it's in the same thing you're good at, it'd still be kind of good. And so what I mean by that is, with my very, very detailed explanation, is when you're working with Node and MongoDB and things like that, typically it's all JavaScript, right? Express it's all JavaScript based. And so if you're working with the front end in JavaScript, but the back end's in PHP, you now need to be good at JavaScript, and you better be good at PHP for the back end instead of having to just master a framework or a library. So it gets a little complex. And so if you're just good at one thing, and it's not really one thing because these frameworks are like languages in themselves, but it's a lot easier to transition to the back end. That's been my experience. Did I attend any schools? I did go. I was a CS major, but all the web development stuff I've learned has been on my own through sites like Codecademy and freeCodeCamp mainly. Thank you, man. I love this shirt. You can get this shirt at I got this shirt a couple of years back. It might have been 5 years ago. It's been a while. Let's see. I'm trying to remember. Whatever that site is where you can buy gaming clothes is where I got it. Is it easier to build out the front end with jQuery to AngularJS? I personally think Angular gives you a lot of. I think Angular is more intuitive once you actually dive into it, but there's a lot more that goes on with it. So, but I think they're kind of equivalent in terms of difficulty. jQuery is kind of the default beginner like framework, but I prefer Angular. But I think if you just sat down with somebody, like let's say you hired me to tutor you for an hour, and you're saying, Dylan, you charge $75. That seems pretty expensive, but for that 1 hour of time, I would feel confident that as long as you had a strong background in JavaScript, or you did some JavaScript, I could teach you how to get started with Angular and the basics of it. Welcome, Coding Phase. Welcome. How much time should I devote to coding on a daily basis? It depends on the individual, but I like that you're saying on a daily basis, because you do need to code every day. When I wanted to become a developer, I was coding about 4 hours a day. And on the weekends, I don't know, 1 or 2 people think I'm bullshitting, but I legit coded 4 to 5 hours a day working a full-time job, and then about 12 hours each day on the weekends. But make sure, the main thing to do is at least 30 minutes to an hour a day. And if you can, do 4. And just keep on. The thing about how to become a good developer is consistency, guys. Every day you need to work towards being better. And it will click. That's the thing is, a lot of people don't tell you when you get started, like, hey, you don't need to wait for anybody to learn this stuff. You just have to go. And you're going to struggle through it, and you're going to hit roadblocks, but you're going to learn a ton of shit in the process. And, if you're part of great Facebook groups like Code Tech and Caffeine, and you're down and you're doing freeCodeCamp, you're doing Codecademy, whatever you're doing, you're going to meetups, you're going to hackathons, you're just going to keep getting better, man. And you're going to live streams like this. Here I am, a working developer, answering questions, trying to share what I can, where you don't have to just have this in the back of your head. I will tell you what I know to be true, or at least what I think to be true, which is better than just guessing, right? And so you just need to be part of it every single day, and you have to change your life and stay focused and on track. How should you prepare for a web development interview? What kind of questions did you encounter? So I had about 4 or 5 interviews. And what I can tell you is they're all vastly different. So some you'll have algorithm interviews. Some they'll actually have you build projects. Some they'll have you just do a phone interview and send some project portfolios. Some they'll have a whole long list of things, man. It really just depends. Now, what I can say is if you're going to be working with certain frameworks and libraries, study that, right? Like if it's a front-end job and you're going to be working with Angular or React, you need to go on Stack Overflow and find out what Angular and React questions are good to know. Let's see. So I see a lot of jobs for Angular S, but it seems crazy to learn it instead of Angular 2. Well, you can learn Angular 1 in probably about 2 weeks, at least the basics of it. You can learn the basics of Angular 1 in 2 weeks. Like really learn it, right? Now you're always going to continue on, but it's one of those things where you need to learn something. What are you going to learn Angular 2 then? If you don't want to learn Angular 1, that's not a bad idea either. It's going to be harder, but go for it. How is Ember.js? I haven't worked with Ember.js. I stay away from niche frameworks and libraries. I primarily only work with things that are in demand in my off hours or that are coming up, right? So things that are pretty popular, AngularJS and React. You will not hear me work with anything else except maybe Vue.js because so many people have asked me about it. There's so much to learn. You have to. I'm of the mindset that it's all fun, it's all cool. So if you enjoy it all, what you need to do is you need to study what's in demand and it's going to get you paid the most and make you future-proof, which is why I'm studying Node, why I'm studying Express, why I'm learning better ES6 standards, why I'm working with MongoDB and Mongoose, all these sorts of things. Ember.js, not to say that it's a small framework, but there's so many JavaScript frameworks that you would be making a poor decision to pigeonhole yourself into an Ember.js for a while. Now, if you got a job in Ember.js, God bless you, man. Keep it pushing. So that's just my 2 thoughts on it. What's the name of the video streaming service? That's lbry.io. library.io. Mika Gabbard. What framework do I use? I use primarily AngularJS. We're an Angular lamp stack at my work. Although in my off hours, I'm studying the mean and soon to be MERN stack. I'll be once I get a better once I finish the backend certification on freeCodeCamp, which is Node Express, MongoDB, Mongoose, and building like CRUD applications. I will be moving on to what do you call it? I will be moving on to React and React Native and Redux. Sorry, guys. So this guy I go to school with is learning to create websites. Tell me why they're teaching Java, HTML instead of HTML, CSS, and JS. Well, Java can be built to do anything. It just sucks. And a lot of old companies use Java, which is why they're teaching that. Java is actually one of the worst languages you can learn to get a job. I say this because after talking with Quincy about 9 months ago, Quincy Larson, the founder of freeCodeCamp, also has the most successful tech blog on Medium, and I'm sure qualified in a bunch of other shit. From his analytics that he got, when looking for work, for developers looking for work, Java was the worst language to look for work. Every 2 applicants, there was 1 job. Meanwhile, it flipped on its head for JavaScript roles, which was 1.7 jobs per applicant. So this goes back to like the Ember.js things. What do I want to learn? I want to learn the shit that's going to get me employed and get me money. Like, I don't know. Isn't that the whole point we go to school? Isn't that you go to school to get a job. If you don't go to school, you still need a job. So what are you going to learn? You're going to learn what's in demand. Now, if school teaches you things that aren't in demand, you still got to learn shit to get a job. Where was I? Do you have any WordPress or CMS experience thoughts? Yeah, so I used to, when I was freelancing, I did a lot of content management with companies where I would get paid like $20 an hour remotely to fix their WordPress things and stuff like that for small businesses. But my advice is to stay away from content management systems for one main reason is that they pay less. The average, and the only one that if you just don't want to listen to me that you should do is WordPress because it controls about 70% of the market of CMS systems. But in general, you want to stay away from them as a developer unless you want to be a web designer. If that's what you want to do, you're basically a web designer that builds WordPress templates, which is fine. But just understand that you're going to make less money, and I don't think it's going to be as fun. At least not for me, it wouldn't be. Is my room on fire? Nah, man. It's the essential oil diffuser I got going. Have you found the switch to using Linux? Nah, I haven't started with Linux, man. All these dudes hating on me for using Windows, man. Maybe those Java dudes need to change to Android. Same thing. That includes Android. When I say the Java, that's combining Android. And React is pretty busy in Austin, Texas as well, from what I've been told by Steven. Isn't WordPress moving to JavaScript away from PHP? That'd be the best decision they've ever made. No one wants to use PHP, man. Let's just keep it real. Zool, yeah, man. If you want to set up a mentoring session, I'd love to check out your portfolio and give you some tips, man. I need to jump to Mac. I don't know, man. I like Windows, man. I'm sorry. I've been using Windows for goddamn 20 years, man. I'm old now. I'm not ready, man, to change. We'll see, though. I mean, I'm not opposed to it. It's just wherever I've worked has been on Windows. I'm not going to demand, hey, I need to learn Mac. Get this $5,000 MacBook in here. Yeah, man. It just depends. But yeah, a lot of people, and that's unfortunate, right? And that's why I think it's important to look at statistics and go from there. And as someone who works in PHP, by the way, let's jump back to that. I've been working with PHP for about 4 months of the last 6, on and off with MySQL, and I can tell you, I can do a ton of stuff more in the month I've been using Node and Express than I can do in PHP. So it all just depends, man. Real developers use Linux or Mac. Hey, man. Real developers can develop on a Windows without having to demand a Linux or a Mac. How about that? Now, when talking about PHP, it doesn't mean that there's not jobs. But think about it for a second. Think about it logically, right? You're a junior developer and you want to give yourself an edge to make good money and get a job easier. What is going to do that? Well, if you're working with newer technologies where where the guys who have been working with PHP for 20 fucking years, 10 years, let's just say 5 years, 5 years now, you have 5 professional years of experience, you're a senior developer. Welcome. So 5 years is what it is. Now, PHP is old, and so thus a lot of people are comfortable with PHP. And they're not going to go and learn Node and Express and work with MongoDB and Mongoose. No, but you can. And those technologies, even though they're creeping up, but they don't have a lot of legacy code, right? Even though they're creeping up, that is where you need to strike. That is why boot camps teach mean and MERN. There are very few boot camps that are going to be teaching you the LAMP stack, guys. I'll tell you that right now. So it's, I mean, how long do you think it'll take for colleges to catch up and teach us actually using in today's economy? I don't think they'll ever catch up. I mean, that's the truth. This is why, by the way, this is why. So the University of Florida State has a boot camp that teaches you actually relevant things, but it's a boot camp. It's a 6-month boot camp. It teaches you React. It teaches you Angular 2. It goes over Node and Express. Now, is it a good boot camp? I have no idea. I lean towards no because it's a college, and I don't think they know how to teach relevant things. I really don't. I think they probably don't pay the teachers enough, and because of it, they don't get qualified people to teach in these things. I truly believe that. Now, my main concern, though, forget that, because that's all stipulation. That they have a good syllabus. I've looked at the syllabus. I've examined it. It's twice as long. Okay, whatever. It's about the same price. Cool. Now, what do we know about colleges? They already have programs that teach web development, that teach computer science. Why aren't they out fixing those? Why aren't they out? Like that? That is it for me. You have something that you are saying right now is broken. So instead of fixing that broken system, hey, don't worry. I know we've been teaching things that, like, you're gonna have benefit from getting a degree, no doubt. Don't think I'm getting one of those people who are like, to get a degree, you just go into debt and you don't know. There's benefits, right? It opens doors. But in terms of skills, you have this degree over here, cool. But what skills are you getting out of it? Instead of fixing this, instead of saying, hey, what's on here? We need to fix this. Nah. Let's wrap it up over here. We're going to get them to go through all that school first and then go pay another 10 grand for a boot camp. Shady as fuck. I don't like it. Fix your broken system before you create your new great one, right? How long do we have to finish the front-end certificate before things get changed up? I don't know. If I had to guess based off of what I see on the beta of freeCodeCamp, I would say around 3 months. 3+ months. It's going to be a minute. But that's no insider knowledge or anything like that. Quincy doesn't tell me shit, man. So I don't know. I feel like you need a degree to check the box because a lot of companies don't want to hear you without a degree. Not all companies. I'm doing just fine. So I don't know. Also, I think it's easier, instead of learning PHP, to learn a JavaScript stack. And I think you'll be a better developer because of it. There's a stack for a reason, and I think learning the JavaScript stack versus a stack that has multiple languages is a better choice. How am I finding the data visualization part of freeCodeCamp? I'm glad you asked that. I've worked with D3 at my current work, and I studied it before they released the beta. I really like that D3 is on there. However, I'm not a fan of D3. I think if your boy right here rewrote it it'd be better. That's what I think. No disrespect to the guys who made D3. I don't think it's. I think they need. I think what they need are some good tutorials and good video. And when I understand it better, I will do some things with it. But I think it's great to get you started with D3. Do I think I can do the projects on there? I don't know, man. What's the most interesting interview question you ever received? I don't know if this was the most interesting, but I could tell you the most frustrating was that I was interviewing for before I took my job, I was interviewing for a role that required it was a front end role, but they wanted me to code like 4 projects in languages we weren't going to use to see how well I could learn a language in like 3 days. And that was the most frustrating, just because it reminded me so much of learning shit. Like you're telling me to spend 4 days doing something that I'm not going to be doing to get this job that doesn't even pay all that well in comparison. So I wasn't a big fan of that, and it kind of set me the wrong way. And when I got a better offer with less of a pain in the ass, I was in the middle of doing it. But yeah, so they gave me, it was literally 4 challenges, no bullshit. And it was this shit that I never heard of. Like I never touched. It was like Rust. It was like Haskell. Like there was old shit on there. Yeah, but Python is used for like data science and things like that. And Python's great to learn as well. If you reviewed the Stack Overflow 2017 survey, which had 64,000 developers, there was only 2 languages that were on the increase. That was JavaScript and Python. Everything else was either maintaining or decreasing. Have I watched Engineered Truth's new video about 6 months post Dev Mountain? I have indeed. Yes. Yeah, so Steve, yeah, so that was the thing, is they wanted me to do these things in language. Oh, and by the way, just in case you knew one of these 4 fucking languages, right? One of these 4 languages, and mind you, I told you I only work with shit that is that is being used and like popular. That's my mentality, because there's so much to learn. You should be learning stuff that's popular and being used. So in case you did know, let's just say you fucking knew Rust. Whatever, man. You're one of those guys. You like fucking with random shit. You had to do each one of the 4 in a different fucking language that they offered. How crazy is that? Oh, man. How did you improve my algorithm skills? My algorithm skills improved simply by doing the algorithms on freeCodeCamp, man. And a lot of struggling and a lot of drawing it out. That whiteboard's been drawn on by Engineered Truth and myself, studying and solving algorithms on our own and visualizing it. What I think, I don't know if you guys know this, but Matt and I talk almost every day on the phone. And so from to go into more detail about Engineered Truth, is he's a smart guy, and he values education. So he took the boot camp and he did it, and he had a great time, and he prepared for it, right? So I was just talking about how we did algorithms. He prepared for it, and we studied, and I helped him out, and he helped me out, and he was one of the best in his class. Now, when he started the boot camp, he was making about $4,000 from his channel. When he graduated 3 months later, that had doubled. And so he's making much more than the average starting developer. And to put it in perspective now, that has, in a good month, that has doubled again. So in a good month, he's making $16,000. He has no reason to be a developer. All his energy and his focus should be on YouTube. That's where he makes his money, and that's how he's profitable. Now, he uses those skills that he got all the time. He gave me a tutoring session in Node and Express. He built out his YouTube course and used their platform, but changed the code in it. So I know he got a lot out of it and enjoyed it a lot and enjoyed the challenge. But But at the end of the day, he's not going to work as a developer. And his plan when he went into there was never to work for a company. It was to work remotely and to have a skill set that allowed him to work remotely. And he has picked up remote clients. Let's see here. The brainfuck programming language, that's the real one, huh? Do you listen to music while you code? If so, what type of music do you listen to? I listen to a lot of like trap, a lot of gaming remixes, things like that. I'm actually in the process of building a playlist. So I'll share it with you. It's called the Get Lit Programming. The programming stack. I had over 100 songs on my old one, and it was just getting too big. So actually, I'll share it at the end of the stream. How long have I been coding for? So I've been learning web development probably for about 2 years, roughly, from beginning to end. And about 2 years before that, I started with coursework in Java primarily. But yeah, so by the way, guys, I've said this a couple times, but please join our Facebook group, Code Tech and Caffeine. The link is in the description as well as in the chat. You can share memes, you can share resources, all that sort of stuff. Now, I think it's important to be kind of surrounded by developers and be kind of have people remind you, whether it be through your Facebook feed or by going to meetups, whatever the case may be. I think it's really important to kind of stay focused, especially when you're just starting out, man. It's easy when you're getting those fat developer paychecks and you enjoy it, right? You can actually build shit on your own with having to bash your head against the monitor, right? It's a lot harder when you haven't got any sort of payoff yet, right? So you need to kind of lighten the mood, share resources, maybe read stuff about coding, stay up to date about what frameworks are being used, what may pique your interest, what directions to go in, what memes make you laugh, all that sort of stuff, man. Let's see, how long have we been going, guys? How long is this? What is the most popular Angular testing framework? It is Karma and Jasmine. Yeah, man, you got blocked. You went too hyphy in the chat. Sorry, coding face. Lots of events going on there. What's an event? No, yeah, events. I'm in the Tampa area, guys. Yeah, protractors for end-to-end testing, and Jasmine tests are for unit testing. And that's something, by the way, that moving forward, I'm going to start doing testing on these projects so that you guys can build additional skill sets in that as well. Oh, man. All right, guys, final questions before we wrap this up. What do you think about Golang and Elixir? I don't know anything about it, unfortunately, so I can't really answer you. You can teach me Angular 4? Hey, I might hit you. I might take you up on that. I should do a meetup. I go to some meetups on occasion. I don't know. I don't think I have enough subscribers in the area to do a meetup. Although the last few I went to at the Iron Yard in St. Pete, I ran into a couple of subscribers. That was kind of cool. That doesn't happen too much. But that it's always nice to, someone say, hey, thank you. All right, thanks, man. Where are the big-breasted beauties to say thank you so I can turn them down? They'll be so stunned. They'll stand. I'll be like, hey, girl, relationship is 6 years. You ain't got nothing on this. I gotta go. Words of wisdom. It's been a while. How can I contact you? You can message me on Facebook if you want to contact me about tutoring or mentoring or anything like that, or Twitter. Those links are on the channel homepage as well. But yeah, those are probably the easiest ways. You can also email me. Actually, just email me. I got a feeling you're going to want me to do something for free, and I don't want to have to block you on Facebook. There's my email in the chat. So, all right, guys. So we do these live streams. This is our special Ask a Dev episode, whatever, live stream where we say thank you to the 1,000 of you. To Coding Phase, if you have a podcast, you can shoot me an email, man, or a message, and we can set it up. So. Will you ever upload this segment on live stream about a month back? No, it didn't come out as good as I thought it did. But we do these live streams to basically say, welcome to the 1,000 of you to kind of dive into things and talk, and I can answer whatever questions that I feel comfortable answering. And you've seen throughout here that I will, some of you will have a different opinion than me, and some of you will agree, and then sometimes I'll just tell you, I don't know. So there's so much to know that I think it's important that, especially as content creators, that when we do kind of we do share our knowledge or our experiences at the very least, that we don't try to oversell it and lie. So it's okay saying you don't know, and if you don't know and you want to know, there's resources out there to get it. So I'll leave you with this little tidbit, guys. What you need to do to be a successful developer. We'll leave you with this. You need to spend 30 minutes to an hour on a minimum daily. This is what you need to do. These are the steps. This is simple. If you're at an HTML and CSS level, how do we get you in the door as a junior developer? Well, the basics are you need to be presentable in your interview, so dress nice. You need to have a nice looking resume. You can get that. You can dress nice by going to H&M or some bullshit. You can get a nice looking resume by using Novo Resume. You can get a nice looking LinkedIn and putting projects on there. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, how to get your LinkedIn to look nice, you can watch my video. I talk about that for 10 minutes. Now, skill wise, what order of skill should you be doing? And by the way, that 1 hour, half an hour minimum, that's if you're busy. When I was learning, 4 hours a day, 12 hours on the weekends. That's the type of dedication you need. And when you go and you get your developer job, I spent about 16 hours in total this weekend learning MongoDB, Express, and Node. You need to have the same dedication because you want to go from a junior to a mid to a senior to fat fucking stacks of money. You just drop and you say, hey, I got money like that. That's the type of developer money you want to be making, and you got to continue your learning. But back to where you start, right? HTML, CSS, JavaScript, jQuery. From there, you should have, once you hit the jQuery and you're doing these free CodeCamp projects, you should have 4 or 5 plus projects to work on. And you should have them done, and you should have a nice portfolio website at this point. Build yourself a website and have it to showcase to send to employers so that they can see these things and they can interact with your applications. From there, you need to work with Angular or React. Don't be spending your time on these less known ones. And if you want a challenge, jump into Angular 2. These are the sort of technologies you need to be comfortable with. If you want to blow them away, you can do UI, UX with wireframes and user flow. And if you want to blow them away even more, you can do quality assurance testing with Jasmine and Karma to really send it home that you are a different type of candidate. You are a candidate that loves it all and enjoys it all and is always learning. It is about selling you as an individual and how you are better than the rest, and not because you're a better person, but because you want it more and you're learning more. Because in web development, things are changing every day, and you need to change with it, and you need to learn it, or you're going to become obsolete, and you want to future-proof yourself. So learn everything you can and be able to showcase it. Don't just learn it, build stuff. You need to build stuff to show things to employers so that they can look at it. And it's all great that you've done all of freeCodeCamp and Codecademy, but if you don't build anything to show it to them, they're just going to laugh. They're not going to take you seriously. When I was at my old job, the first thing they would do when they look at your resume is they go to your portfolio, start clicking around in your applications that you built to see what was going on. And that's from the workplace, not hypothetical. And that's exactly what you need to build and go from there. Those are just some quick little tips. The main thing, guys, stay motivated, always keep learning. That's why we have things like the Facebook group, so that you can, when things are going hard and you're saying, how do I stay focused? Or you just need a break. You want to just read about code, learn about it. You don't always have to be typing it. You don't always have to be smashing your brain. And, that's why we do these Ask a Devs as well. But my thing is, guys, stay motivated, stay hungry, especially when it has yet to pay off, but it will if you code every day and you keep moving forward. I appreciate you guys for being here. Thank you to the new 1,000 of you that join our Facebook group. And if you like me and you want to support me, you can at patreon.com/codingtutorials360. This was our special 17K AMA. I will see you guys at 18K, hopefully sooner than the last time. And we'll keep it moving. And of course, don't forget to get those courses on Udemy, as Kevin Cho says. Bye, guys. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you guys next time.